Due to high inflation rates and the instability of the naira versus the dollar, the cost of farming has increased exponentially. Focusing on crop production and livestock rearing, we will be looking at what it costs to run a farm and the impact that inflation has had on agribusiness. My name is Chamunda Beng and you're welcome to Agripreneur. Before we delve into our discussion for today, let's take a look at the average market prices in the FCT. Though in the last 2 months, Nigeria has seen a deceleration in the inflation rate, as of August 2024, the consumer price index is currently 32.15% versus its previous rate of 33.4%. However, this is largely due to the harvest season and not enough to see any real or long-lasting difference.
Now, in recent times, we've seen the cost of agricultural commodities skyrocket through the roof. Now, this is attributed to several factors, some of which are inflation, brought on by high energy costs, natural disasters, and this is just to mention a few. Now, unfortunately, many Nigerians, especially the final consumers, may think that the farmers are making things expensive. However, both the farmers and the final consumers themselves have to deal with these issues, as production cost has equally increased, and as a business owner, as a farmer, they have to be able to make their money back. So we're going to be speaking to people within the industry to see what they go through, some of the challenges, and what makes the farm commodities so expensive.
Crop farmer Nura Ilya says that any business requires some risk. However, agribusiness has taken a turn for the worse while explaining the process of farming and what it requires. Ilya also delves into some of the losses he has incurred due to the rise in the cost of input.
You know, farming these days is becoming somehow difficult. To me, it is turning to be somehow different because of cost of living, particularly the way things are moving now. Everything you touch, some of the inputs, you get it at your own risk. Before, if you're comparing it with nowadays life, if I'm taking it particularly cost of producing maize, because I'm a member of Maize Farmers Association of Nigeria. That's the one though we do plant a lot of crops, but for maize in particular, it requires a lot of fertilizer. We need herbicides, and the cost of labor is becoming very high these days. So for maize to be efficient and for you to get a better yield from maize, the land preparation is also a question to us. You start by clearing your farm. If you have the means, you can also use tractor for tilling, and that one, it depends on the number of hectares you have. Per hectare, approximately, you may engage up to 80,000 per hectare, which it used to be somewhere around 30 to 40,000. So if you are comparing now, the complaint from the operators, normally it's tight about fueling. Cost of diesel is high, and that's why you have to pay high before you till. After the plowing, some, if you opportune, you also need a harrow so that it will lose the soil, so that it will be conducive for the planting. So we engage laborers for planting. Some of us that are into a bigger farming may use planting machines. So if you are using planting machine, it's also cost effective. But if you use the nearby laborers, the daily pay, sometimes you arrange, sometimes you have to pay them daily pay of approximately 3,000 per day, of which it used to be 1,000, 1,500. You understand? So it depends on the number of hectares you have. So after that, you have to also use chemicals as pre-herbicide. That's pre-emergence herbicide. I think you are managing the stages: clearing, tilling, planting. Now you come to applying chemicals as pre-emergence. So if you are done with that, if you are lucky, if the rain is okay, since we are using natural means, if the land is okay and is able to germinate as required, fine. You wait for some time before you also use fertilizer. After 3 to 4 weeks, you apply the first fertilizer. Hope you understand. So after that, you wait for some time. Sometimes thinning is required because you may design to plant 2 seeds per hole. If you are not lucky enough, if you are not using machine for planting, you use human beings, they may be putting 4, 5, 6, which is a crowd. So you have to also engage some people for thinning. If you finish the thinning, then the growing will be okay. So after that, grass may also come out after some time, because all these spray herbicides may not last all that throughout the season, particularly this area that the rain is high. It may start germinating again. So you have to also apply the second fertilizer. So from there, at least the maize may come up for, I hope, maybe 2 to 3 months at most. Maize will be matured for harvesting. Sometimes if you are not prepared enough, you may design to have a good number of hectares for cultivation. But at the end, if you are expecting money, or maybe a promise from the government or whoever else coming, and if you open a larger farm and at the end you couldn't get, you end up not even applying fertilizer at all. So, or maybe you end up applying halfway. So you consider the remaining part of it that is not well taken care of. At the end, that one will be a loss. That is the basic thing there. But if you say you are going to use what you have, sometimes the number is, our problem is the promises. Sometimes, particularly government, sometimes they used to promise that they will get some assistance at subsidized rate. But at the end, it won't come in good time. So, and maize also have particular period. It has a timing period. If you start, and the first fertilizer is supposed to come 2-3 weeks after planting. If you are not able to get it after that 2-3 weeks, you understand, automatically you are losing. Because if you didn't apply, it won't give you the result. That is the loss sometimes you encounter. And if the rain is also not sufficient, sometimes it's also a problem, particularly when it has started bearing flower. So once that time, if the rain is not there, you consider yourself under that risk.
In order to keep their farms running, several farmers have had to turn to cheaper and more traditional means. But Elias says these options aren't always the best, as it will affect the yield.
Reducing that one, you can use local or traditional method, but at the end, the yield is not going to be as required. Most of our lands here, has been used over years. So the only local way you use is to get all this organic fertilizer from waste from our animals. That's for people that have animals around them. They may use this thing as also as a local fertilizer. So I think that's the way you can do. But at the end, the yield is not going to be high because you can't have a big number of land to cultivate. So if you are using it commercially, I think it's a must that you must get all this inorganic fertilizer in particular. Because if you are to use labor for weeding, a plot of land, that's a hectare of land, instead of using maybe 4-5 liters of chemicals, you may employ almost maybe 30 laborers, of which if you compare the cost, It's not going to be, you can't compare. And another thing is, if you are not lucky after the first weeding, if that very day or following day rain fall, the grass may not even go. The only problem this cow dung is having on plants is if you are to use local way of weeding. You know, most of the dung they use plants around, so it will introduce more grass to your farmland. You understand? So after applying, if care is not taken, after 2-3 weeks, you discover that weeds will fill up your. So at the end, you think you are getting fertilizer, but you are using more money to control the weeds. I hope you understand. Yeah. So at the end, you'll be safe in terms of the fertilizer application, but you also use the remaining money in weeding. So at the end, it's just like -1+1.
A bountiful harvest means cheaper prices for consumers as it breeds competitive market prices. However, for the farmers, this can often translate to massive losses.
Normally during harvest, it used to be low. The price used to be comparatively low. But that one too doesn't help farmers, because most of the farmers we have around, you will be forced to sell at a lower price because of high supply in the market. So once the supply is high in the market, automatically the price used to be low. Our challenge now is all these middlemen. They will come and invade the market, and at the end they go out with everything. And at the end, if you want to plant another season, before that time you will be left with no bags at all. So they will be there now selling at a higher price. You can't resist not to sell, because sometimes you may even borrow either from bank or individual. So once you are borrowing from individual, at the end of the rainy season and the person is asking you to give him his money back, how do? You have to sell, and you are selling at a very low price. So that one too is a problem, because that is why farmer will always have problem, because you sell at a lower price. Whenever you want to cultivate, that time you are left with nothing in the store. So it's just like or something. So to me, if at all government will come in, even if they will have silos that can control the excess in the market, if they are to buy from farmers at a reasonably price that can at least check the cost of production, I hope you understand, at least it's a problem. It is going to go a long way. But if you are selling at a lower price that is even lower than the cost of production. For example, if you are to produce maize from inception up to the end, you may use, for instance, 70,000, and at the end you sell it at 45. Automatically you are losing 25. And most of the money come. You are not getting the money at a subsidized rate. You are not getting the inputs at subsidized rate. If you borrow from individuals or if you borrow from bank, at the end bank will also ask you to remit, and sometimes they even add some profit. So interest, that interest, how do you cover that one? And at times, if there is any natural disaster or any loss a farmer incur, at the end they may not even consider whether you've lost or not. All they know is to pay them their money back. How do you do it?
As most crops are often seasonal, Ilya is asking the federal government to not only step in with interventions, but to do so in a timely fashion. According to Ilya, they often come at the end of the harvest, which is usually too late.
A very big part of the farming sector is livestock rearing. Now, some of these animals will end up becoming beasts of burden, but most of them will move from farm to market to plate, as Nigerians are known as very big meat eaters. However, a kilo today of some of our most popular types of meats, like goat's meat or beef or ram meat itself, have now become very expensive, and most people can't even afford to buy it anymore, as it moved from a time where it sold at 1,525 to now being sold at 4,000 to almost 6,000 naira, and possibly even more. So today we're going to be taking a look at what it takes to keep these animals healthy until it's time for them to be sold.
Livestock farmer Aliyu Adamu, who has been engaged in the trade for several years, says things continue to get progressively worse and is struggling to keep his head above water.
Gaskiya na daɗe da fara wannan harkar batun anan ba. Da ina Kano ina yin harkar, ina kuma kaiwa Port Harcourt ina siyarwa. Ina zuwa Niger ina siyowa, ina kaiwa Port Harcourt ina siyarwa. To amma yanzu ina nan Abuja shekara ta 8 kenan da dawowa nan. Yawwa. Amma abubuwa gaskiya sun canja. Da dai akuya tun muna siyan babba naira 4,000 zuwa 5,000, amma yanzu abin ya canja ya dawo. Gaskiya akuya yanzu mai kyau babba ma in kana so sai ka sa kamar 70,000 80. Rago kuma ana samun na 100,000 har 200 ma. Amma da gaskiya babban rago shine 40,000 30,000. Amma yanzu abubuwa sun canza. Kiwon ma yanzu da yawa baya yiwa wajen mutane. Da za ka ga dabbobi in ka je kasuwa za ka same su da yawa ga su nan, amma yanzu in ka je kasuwan ma wahala suke saboda abubuwa sun yi daraja. Abincin da za ka ciyar da su ma ba a iya siya. Mutane suna ta abincin da za su ci ne yanzu ba wai ta abin da za su ba dabba ba ma. Ita kanta inda ake samunta da yawa yanzu ba ta samuwa. Gaskiya yanzu ciniki ya rage. Da dai gaskiya ina siyar da akalla a nan muna yanka akuya kamar guda 1,000 1,200 a kullum rana. Amma yanzu abin ya canja gaskiya. Ba a wuce 500 700 600. Wata ranar ne ma za a yanka 700. Amma da muna yanka sama da 1,500. Abubuwan yanzu kwastoman ma ba sa iya siya. Daraja ta yi yawa. Yanayi ya canja gaba ɗaya, abubuwan sai a hankali. Masu siyan guda 2 sun koma 1, masu siyan 10 sun koma 5. Akwai wanda suke siyan guda 50 kullum suna yanka, amma yanzu guda 20 suke yanka 30. Abubuwan yanzu duk sun rage wallahi. Sai dai haƙuri. Da dai abincin dabbobin ma tsadarsa 3,000 4,000 haka muke siya mu ba dabbobin mu. Amma yanzu buhu ɗaya na abinci akwai wanda ma 15,000 13,000. Akwai wanda da muna siyan shi 3,000 yanzu ya koma 8,000 10,000. Wanda muke siya 5,000 ya koma 17,000 18,000. Kiwon ma yanzu baya yiwa wajen mutane sosai saboda abincin tsadar ta yi yawa wallahi. Abubuwan sun canja. Abinci idan ka ajiye da yawa kamar rago yanzu kana da guda 20, to a kullum zai ci ma abincin 20,000 15,000 17. Idan kuma kana da kamar guda 30 ko 40, to abinci gaskiya za ka iya cin na 30,000 ma a rana ɗaya. Da ku na 4,000 ya ishe ka 5,000. Amma yanzu za ka iya cin na 25,000 30 inda kana da su da yawa. Idan kana kiwo, idan za ka ba su abinci kana son su ƙara girma su ƙoshi sosai, za ka samu kowane wake da ƙaiƙayi na dawa in ka haɗa in ka ba su, to suna ƙara ƙoshi da mai sosai. Wasu kuma za ka ba su ganye don dabbobin kala-kala ne. Akwai wanda ma irin wannan na gabas na wajen Maiduguri Yobe, idan ka sake su ma suka ci ciyawa za su yi ƙoshi sosai. Amma namu na nan arewa na dai kamar Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, to su an fi ba su ganyen wake da ganyen gyada da na dawa sun fi cin shi. Amma su na can gabas ciyawa ma an ka ba su ya isa.
We'll take a short break, and when we get back, the discussion continues. You're welcome back to Agripreneur on Trust Television. If you're just joining in, we are taking a look at inflation and its impact on agribusiness. Due to the high cost of inputs, several farmers have turned away from agribusiness after suffering huge losses, rendering their businesses incapacitated. Nigeria is highly dependent on smallholder farmers as they represent 70 to 80% of Nigeria's farm businesses. More losses could pose a threat to Nigeria's food security.
Despite a drop in the prices of market commodities as a result of the harvest season, this result is often described by experts as weak, with many fearing that prices will go back up again.
If you look at what is going on now in Nigeria in terms of food security, actually there is a problem in terms of food crisis or food scarcity. Though now farmers have started harvesting, but generally the issue of food security is something that is everywhere, and people are suffering about the issue of how to feed themselves, especially for the past 2 months to date, because sometimes some people may eat only once, while some cannot even have the means to get the food. Why? Because there is a scarcity of the food. But we know that there are so many factors that now constitute the shortage of this food or the food crisis in the country. But now the problem is coming down, is subsidizing because of the harvest of some food crops in Nigeria. Possibly we can go back to where we came from, maybe by March next year to April, if there is no any drastic action that is taken. Because now farmers are harvesting, they are harvesting their produce. That is why the price is coming down. So when the harvest finished, by end of December to end of January, by then even the corn, that is the sorghum, that is coming late, it will finish. So from there, the price will now start going up again, because when the farmers sold what they produced, so the one that they have, they will now keep it for their own use, for their own utilization, while the other large-scale farmers will not sell their produce at that time. They will just store it in their warehouses, so that because they have produced it for commercial purpose, they will not sell it at that time. So if there is no any arrangement or any planning against the next season, that is the dry season, so from there, if there is no enough food, definitely the price will still go up again, so that you will see that we can go back to where we came from, so that the price will go back, will go up again. But if there is a good planning for the support to the farmers for the dry season, so if there is a dry season farming, so I'm sure by then the new produce will come again. By the time that the one that we produce is about to finish, then the new one for the dry season start coming again, so that the price now will still go, will continue to be stable, to be moderate. But if there is no that planning, definitely you will go back, the price will still go up again.
As much as there is a need to continue to train smallholder farmers, Abubakar says the issues go further than just that.
It's not the issue of to train them how to store, to warehouse their produce. It's the availability of the produce, because they are small scale farmers. So what they produce cannot be enough for them. After they sell what they want to sell for their own needs, other needs, then the one that they will now use for their daily needs, that is for their consumption. So at the end, there is nothing that they will now store for for storage or for sometimes to keep it at a time that they will sell. Even if there is need for that training, yes, like in our own site, we are training our farmers on how to store their produce, because we have many other partners that we collaborate with them in terms of capacity building, that they are training our farmers. So even if there is need for the farmers to be trained, yes, they will be trained, but at the end, what are they going to give? Because they don't have enough after they now use the one for their own needs and for their own consumption. So there is nothing, it's only to support the farmers very well in terms of finance and other inputs and other services like mechanization and extension services.
Abubakar further states that there is a need for Nigeria to move towards more sustainable farming practices.
Nigeria has enormous agricultural potential, but inflation has always been a problem, impacting market pricing, production costs, and input costs. The ongoing situation shows the necessity for stable economic policies to support sustained agricultural expansion. That's about all the time we have for today. My name is Chamun Dabeng, and keep watching Trust TV.